Hello YouTube. So I'm making this video because IRL, I have a lot of friends and acquaintances who still believe in astrology. And I believed in astrology very strongly for a while. I was so into it that I had these books and I would look up people's charts and the position of the planets at the time they were born and how it influenced their personality and the events of their life, etc., etc. So I was kind of hardcore. But the more I learned about cosmology and about physics, which I don't claim to be an expert. I know there's some physics ninjas out there. Don't kill me. So the more I learned about these things and about skepticism in general, the more I began to question it, and I stopped believing in it. And I'm going to share the reasons why with you. So there are the people who vaguely believe. Okay, there are people who are like, I don't believe the everyday horoscopes, but I do believe in the characteristics of the signs because mine fits me. Now I'm going to use one of Neil deGrasse Tyson's arguments, and I'll see if I can find a video of him saying this and put it in the low bar. I know I'm swinging around. I'm trying to make y'all seasick is what I'm doing. But what he said is conduct your own experiment, okay, and get a group of people in a room. Make it a decent number, at least 10, I would say. And read off the characteristics of one of the signs and see who raises their hand to say that that sounds like them. And more than likely what you will find is that people who you'll get some people who that's not their sign to raise their hand, because the descriptions are written in such a way that many of them are vague enough where we can each sort of pick out at least one quality of a sign that applies to us, or probably even more. And the qualities that don't apply to us, people sometimes tend to cherry pick what we hear when we want to believe something, or we're predisposed to believing in something for a certain reason. And so we may say, oh yeah, that applies to me, and the things that don't apply, just sort of kind of ignore them or make excuses for them, which brings me to my next point. People who get a little deeper into it and believe in it a little more seriously, those things that don't apply to you, astrology has a way of dealing with that. And I speak of astrology, not as if it is a being, but it's not. So what I used to do is you would decipher what the positions of the planets were at the time you were born, according also to the latitude and longitude of your birth, and etc., etc. And so, say, for example, you are a Virgo, which I am, okay? It'll say that you're supposed to be very organized, which anyone who can see my room knows that I'm not. You're supposed to be kind of prudent. You're supposed to be this, that, and the other. Okay, but say there are qualities that don't fit you. Well, what astrology will do is do your chart, and it'll say, well, this quality doesn't fit you because even though you're a Virgo, your Venus is in Cancer, and so you love like a Cancer. Okay. And, I mean, you have the different planets and the sun and the moon, because the sun and the moon both rule signs as well. The sun rules Leo and the moon rules Gemini, I think. Does the moon rule Gemini? Cancer. I think the moon rules Cancer. It's been a while. I don't fucking know. But, yeah, it's been a long time since I believed in that stuff. So, there's always an excuse, And, well, maybe it didn't, your Venus is in Cancer, but this was in retrograde, you know, and so this affects that in another way, and the pull of the moon against this and that and whatever. So there's that. Now, by far the most convincing argument against astrology I've come across came from just learning a little bit about cosmology and physics and relativity, which, you know, we didn't know a whole lot about back in the day when astrology was invented. I don't even know if we had a concept yet of the expansion of the universe. But we used to believe that the universe is expanding, and I don't know when this particular knowledge came about, if this was what they thought when astrology was invented, but what we used to think was that the universe is expanding. Well, fairly recently enough, we discovered dark matter, which means that the universe is not going to expand and then contract like we used to think it would, but rather because dark matter pushes the universe, kind of. And so now people are saying that more than likely the universe will continue to expand until it's just a very cold, dark place with one little planet way out by itself, another planet way out by itself. Yeah, I'm a weirdo. You know, so there's that. But my point with this is that the universe expands, and so the stars and everything that we look out and see as static every day because we only go day by day, right? Those things are moving. They're moving away from each other. They're moving toward each other. They don't have the same relationship to each other now that they did during the time when astrology was invented. And because of relativity, now we know that the speed of light, there's a certain speed limit of light. And so if a star is, say, like 1,000,000 light years away, that means we're not seeing that star as it is. We're seeing that star as it was when the light we're seeing from this star began to travel to us 1,000,000 light years ago. And then you also have to take into account, like, okay, pretend like these are stars, okay? Now, when we look out at the sky and we look at the stars, from our perspective, we're basically seeing a 2-dimensional representation of a 4-dimensional space. And so you look out at the sky, and you might look at this, and you might see 2 stars close together making up a constellation. But it looks like this star is a little smaller. But if you switch your perspective, you see that this star is very far away from this. So when the light from this star reaches this star, it's been however many light years it took to travel there. And so by the time both sets of light begin to travel to the Earth for our eyes to see, this star may have moved already with the expansion of the universe, and this one is over here. And so basically what you're seeing when you look up at the stars is not the stars as they are, because the astrology is based on the belief that the position of the stars affects your life, your everyday, etc., etc. But you're not seeing the stars as they are. You're seeing the stars as they were. And that might not even be during the same time for both stars. The light coming from this star may be much older, and this star may be in a completely different place, or it could just have already burnt out and not even exist anymore, and we wouldn't see that for millions of years. So what does that mean for us? Does it really affect us? I don't think it does. I think we read these horoscopes and we read astrology and we sort of pick out what applies to us. And I'm not saying that's a conscious act of dishonesty. People do stuff like that all the time. And then we discard the rest. And these are the reasons why I don't believe in astrology anymore. And I used to be a diehard believer. So that's my opinion. Thank you for listening. I'm sure there are some people who are physics ninjas in my comment section who will probably correct a few things I said, but basically I know what I'm saying. And thank you. Good night.